Welcome back to the Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard, founder and managing director of The Sales Doctor. This is another solo session where I'm going to actually focus today on how sales leaders can improve sales team performance by focusing in on three distinct drivers of that sales performance. Those three drivers are clarity, confidence, and consistency. We often don't think about sales leadership in the way that I would love us to, and that is that it's a very unique skill set that we don't really focus any level of training or professional development on enough, because it's a very discrete set of skills. I would argue that a sales leader is often chosen as, you know, they've usually got a track record of being the best salesperson, and then they're plucked from that role where they have a proven track record, they're confident, they know what they're doing, into the role of a sales leader. And the problem with that is you lose a fantastic salesperson and you usually gain a very average sales leader. And the reason for that is they don't understand the transition that they need to make from being responsible personally for driving sales results and then going into a sales leadership role and being responsible for driving those results through and with a team of people, all of whom come with their own little peccadillos, all of their own idiosyncrasies, all of their own strengths and weaknesses, all of their own levels of experience. So it's a very complex role. When it's done well, it's a beautiful thing, but generalized leadership programs kind of don't go far enough, because with sales, it's a very practical sport, selling. And so as a sales leader, you need to have sales leadership skills, sales management skills, and sales coaching skills. You need all three of those, and those, I would argue, need to be learnt, because as a salesperson, you probably only have those really high-level selling skills. You don't necessarily have the other three, and structure's a massive part of that. So I run programs for sales leaders to enable them to be excellent at all three of those skills, the leadership, management, and coaching skills. But this episode is really about three very tactical things to focus on if you're a sales leader and you're looking at, well, why is my team not hitting targets? Or if they're hitting targets, but they're not going beyond their targets. They're not achieving all that I know that they probably could, or I suspect that they could. There are three reasons for that. And that's what I want you to have, sales leaders who are listening. I want you to have something that you can take from today's episode and implement straight away to improve the performance of your team members. Okay, so let's start with looking at clarity. So whenever I go into an organization and I'm working with a sales leader and they're talking about their sales team performance, they're not hitting targets, one of the first questions I ask them is, if I ask them what their role was, would they be able to tell me with absolute clarity and not reading anything? And we assume that because people are in a role, they know what their role is there to do. And sometimes the thing that's staring us, you know, in as obvious as the noses on our faces, is the very thing that we can miss. And we fail to ask it because we think that, of course, we assume that people know. So role clarity is the first thing. Do they know what their role is there to do? And do they know what good looks like in that role? Do they know what a good day looks like? Do they know what a good week looks like? Do they know what a good month looks like? Do they know what a good quarter looks like? Would they be able to, and if they know that, is the proof in the pudding. So if you went into their calendar would you see the things that they've told you are needed in order for them to be successful actually demonstrated through their week, through their day? And if that's not present, then I would do a bit of a bit of an intervention with them so that they make sure they include the activities that are necessary for them to be good at what they do. Because as a sales leader, a couple of things happen when sales results are happening. When we're achieving sales results, we don't tend to look under the hood. And as long as our sales team is busy, we kind of leave them. We kind of go, well, they're busy, they're out there doing it. As long as they're not in the office, I'm happy, and we're getting we're hitting targets, we're getting the results, everything's okay. Actually, if we look under the hood, is their work busy and effective, or is it just busy? Because if they're not making progress and if they're not doing things the right way, we're just simply at some stage, the results that we have enjoyed in the past that may or may not have anything to do with us. It might just be, a good market. We might be the only one in the market. There might not be any competition. There might not be any pressure. Will come up against us, and we'll fall against that limit that we have. So that's the first thing. So role and what good looks like. The next thing I would say is process. Is there a clear sales process? It's one of the things that I think companies are screaming out for. Now, I want to be absolutely crystal clear here. I am not saying there is one process and everyone needs to use it. Okay, what I am saying is that each company probably, and usually I have found, has a process. They just haven't documented that, and they haven't supported that with training, with templates and support materials. And they don't also have that anywhere in a CRM that's meaningful, where all of the documentation is in one repository. Now, I'm actually partnering with someone soon to be able to offer an AI solution to a lot of that, but it's underpinned by an organization having a really clearly defined sales process, and then having all of those templates implemented under each of those steps within that process, that staged process. If people have a clear process and a clearly defined process, they've got the supporting tools and mechanisms within that process, do they know how to effectively execute on that process? And that's where our coaching comes into play. I would also say, as a sales leader, it's up to you to use your sales team meetings to have better quality pipeline conversations. Often pipeline is used as a weapon instead of a tool. So we use it to belt our salespeople around the head, even if we don't think we are. Just ask them how much they love having a sales pipeline meeting, and their answer will tell you everything you need to know. If they look forward to it because it's actually useful for them and they can take away from it the actions that are going to enable them to either win a deal or progress a deal or get a deal into the pipeline, then they'll probably really enjoy them. But if it's not conducted as a constructive conversation that adds clarity and focus to their week, it's probably, why didn't you do this? How come you haven't? What do you need to do? It feels like they're back in school and their heads are going back and their eyes are probably rolling back as well. So we need to be able to do that. But having a really well-conducted sales pipeline conversation with our team members, and then with the individuals for their own individual pipelines, is one of those clarity building tools that can really help us and absolutely help our team members. And do we celebrate success around that too? So if we know what success looks like, do we reinforce that success? Do we clarify what that success is? Once we've achieved one outcome, are we clear about the next one? So as a sales leader, my methodology or my mechanisms for creating clarity fall into what I call 3 big rocks. The first one is sales team meetings, and having a clearly defined agenda adds clarity to your team members. It means that they can prepare really well for those team meetings, and they can also conduct them if you ever were on holiday or if you got sick. The momentum continues to go, and anyone could facilitate those meetings because they know what the key agenda items are. Even though the content underneath those agenda headings will change, there should be consistency there. But that sales team meeting should include pipeline and should include a few other things as well, including, celebrating wins. That's critical. So sales team meetings, one-on-ones, which is like a mini version of the sales meeting, but it's really focused in on the individual's sales pipeline and any individual deals that they're working on, so that you can troubleshoot those, you can coach them on those, you can help them to build strategies to win those and progress them. And identifying any areas for development that you've noticed through your in-field coaching sessions. And that's the third pillar, or the third big rock of the clarity piece as a sales leader. So you've got sales team meetings, you've got one-on-ones, and then going out in field with your sales team members. That helps them to clarify too what great looks like when they're playing the game. And it's like any kind of coach. If you're not watching your players play a match, and you're only going to training sessions or you're only going to club meetings, you're not going to be much of a coach, because the whole purpose of your coaching is so that they win on match day, right? And that's the same with our salespeople. We want them to win when they're in front of a customer, and every time they're in front of a customer. And winning doesn't always mean getting the deal, because for some of us, our sales cycles might be 6 months, 12 months longer. So what does winning look like if I've got a 12-month or a 24-month sales cycle? It means progression. But in order for me as a salesperson to know that I've progressed, I need to know what the next horizon is that I'm working towards, and I need to be clear about when I've successfully completed that next horizon, so I know what the next one is. And that is the role of a sales leader, to be coaching and leading that person to be able to execute effectively on each of those horizons. And we do that through a mixture of what I've talked about there, but also in field. So I'll come back to that concept when we talk about confidence, which is next. So we've got clarity as the first driver for better sales team performance. The second one is confidence. When somebody has a high level of self-belief and belief in what they're taking to market, they feel really confident about that offer. That goes such a long way for any customer to feel like, oh, this person is a subject matter expert. I feel like I'm in a safe pair of hands. And because they're credible and they're radiating that level of confidence, I'm able to trust them a lot faster, which expedites the whole sales process. So I might decide that, yes, this is someone that I think I could do business with, number one, which is the first decision. And then it's really a matter of whether or not this product or service is going to fulfill all of the criteria that I've got in my mind as a customer or as a buyer. So confidence is huge. But confidence comes from not building someone up with fluff. It comes from a number of different aspects. The first one, I think, is redefining what winning actually is and celebrating those wins. So coming back to those 3 big rocks for sales leadership with clarity, in a sales team meeting, if I'm redefining what winning is and celebrating those wins, winning could be, something that we've learnt, as well as something that we've achieved. It can be both of those things. And when we celebrate learning, just as much as we celebrate a financial gain or a transaction or a contract or a deal that's been realized, we start to really change the game. And that's when it gets exciting for us. So redefining winning. The second thing that we can do as sales leaders is work with our team to rehearse the things that we don't want them to have to, practice on the spot with the customer. We'd like them to be rehearsed until they can't get it wrong. I recently was in a Vistage workshop, and one of their members said that every Friday they do Role Play Friday, and he and his uncle, so it's a family business, and they're both responsible for generating business. They do role plays. They role play the important meetings that they've got coming up the following week. And what they do is they practice any kind of questions that come their way. They practice what they're going to say. They practice how they're going to present. They kind of think about what the customer is likely to ask or say in that situation so that they're really well rehearsed. Well, that sounds great. It sounds like they're going to be polished. But there's another reason why that matters. When as a salesperson we're asked a question and we hesitate, especially when it's an objection or especially when there's pushback or doubt and we hesitate, that reinforces the doubt. That reinforces the person's hesitation. It reinforces their reason for not going ahead or for not deciding today. And we all know that that's a little bit of a nail in the coffin. So if we expect those objections and we have a ready-made answer because we're so well rehearsed, we're going to really ratchet up our success rate, certainly our conversion rates. The other thing I would say about, rehearsing until we can't get it wrong is just, that's why action beats quality, because action will actually drive quality, particularly if we add iteration into the mix there, which is the infield coaching part. So you can sort of see how it's not as simple as sort of separating these all out. They're kind of interconnected concepts, even though I'm trying to give us some separation so that we can digest it a little bit more easily. And then the other aspect to building confidence is enabling our sales team members to have more outcome-driven conversations so that they start with the end in mind, which is a Covey principle, and they're working back from the result that they'd like to walk away with by the end of the conversation. Not the end of the deal, but the end of the conversation, knowing that there might be multiple conversations in a 12-month period in order to win that piece of work. It takes time, and we need to know that we're making progress. What's a good way of knowing that we're making progress? Being clear about the outcome that we're trying to drive, and then being able to say at the end of the conversation, did I achieve that outcome or didn't I? And if I did, why did I? How do I know? What's the evidence? What do I need to do to build on that? What have I learnt? And if I didn't, where did it fall down? What do I need to do to fix it? What have I learnt? And what are the next steps from here? The other thing too is with confidence, when people know what the process is and they're really clear about all of the things that are going to help them to execute each stage in that process, be it a new business process or an account management process, that's very helpful. And all of that builds confidence. We don't want to leave people. I mean, I've seen companies that think this person's experienced. Let's get them on board, give them a car, a phone, some brochures, some business cards, and a territory. What can go wrong? And we expect them to have lots of confidence. So we need to really set our teams up for success here. So clarity, confidence, and then the final one is consistency. So what's the consistent cadence that we're taking to market? How often do we want them to be seeing each category of customer on a regular basis as they go through their territory? Have we categorized those customers adequately? Have we used criteria to do that? Do I know every single quarter which customers I'm going to see and how frequently I'm going to see them? And that should be pretty consistent quarter to quarter to quarter. Do I know what my purpose is? And am I acting on purpose? And am I doing that consistently? And then we need grit. So for consistency to be in there, grit is not a skill, it's a quality. It's a quality that I would say as a sales leader, we're going to be recruiting new people or bringing existing people into a new role. We need to be looking for that quality of grit. And that means somebody who can dig in and keep going despite how they feel when the going gets tough. So acting better than I feel, consistently and on purpose. And that requires somebody to have the capacity to do that. Not everyone can, but we need to have mechanisms in place early on to spot those people who do and to bring them on. Maybe you can create people that have grittiness, but I would say that grittiness is born out of lots of exposure to tough situations that people have gotten over or thrived through. And so they build this muscle of knowing that even when things get tough, I've got what it takes to endure that and to even succeed in that. And I know that it's not going to last, but I also know that inaction is not going to be the answer there. So that's some food for thought for our sales leaders. So if you're looking at a sales team, you're looking at your sales team and you're thinking, what can I do to improve performance here? Or what can I do so that they're hitting their targets? I might look at those three things: clarity, confidence, and consistency. And if there's anyone out there who's listening and you'd like any further information about the programs that I run for sales leaders especially, just email us at admin@thesalesdoctor.com.au. Have a good rest of the week. Okay, you've been listening to The Sales Revolution. I'm Ingrid Maynard. And to find out how the Sales Doctor can help your organisation to transform its revenue, growth and profit, please email me at ingrid@thesalesdoctor.com.au. Visit us on our website at www.thesalesdoctor.com.au. I look forward to your company next episode. Bye for now.